Welcome to What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm MJ.
And I'm TJ, and this is a low key ghetto Bible study.
And this week we're going to be looking at Esther Chapter 7. If you're new to this channel, you could, I think last time we put the previous videos in the description. So you could just check that for our introduction to Esther and all the chapters we've done so far.
It sets a nice backdrop to what we're going to be talking about in this particular video.
Right. If you're going to be continuing, this is the point where we ask you to pause the video and say a quick prayer.
So, as usual, we are going to summarize.
That was our dog. Still our dog. Yeah. So we're going to summarize
in portions.
Right. The chapter.
And we're going to talk about what stood out to us. What stood out to us from each portion. And then when we're done summarizing and talking about what stood out to us, we're going to answer our two main questions. What is this? What did I learn about God? Or what was I reminded about God from this chapter? And what is it? What impact is it going to have on my life? Like, how is it going to change my life?
All right. So, you will take it away.
All right. So, this was a very short chapter. Like, I was surprised at how short it was. So I only split it into two portions, which is what I've been doing of late. But like, it's two very, very short portions. So the first portion is Esther 7 verses 1 to 6. And so basically, Haman and the king, they go to the second banquet. And again, as they are drinking, Xerxes asks Esther, what is it that you want? Anything you want for, or anything you ask for, up to half of my kingdom, I will give it to you. And then Esther says, basically, this is my paraphrase version. If the king is happy with me, if I'm still in your good books, spare my life and the lives of my people. For we have been sold to be killed and wiped out. And then she goes on to add that if they were only going to be sold as slaves, she would have kept quiet because this would not have been an issue big enough or serious enough to disturb the king. And then so the king asked Esther, who and where is this person who would even attempt to do this? And Esther responds that the enemy is the wicked Haman, and Haman is afraid.
Like I could see it. I could see, and I could hear the dramatic music in the background. And then when she points at him, and then he gasps. Yeah, I could see the whole thing playing out. And I think it's the point in the story where you could be like, you could breathe the sigh of relief.
Almost.
Well, okay. You start.
You let out the breath you've been holding.
Right.
Yeah. It's not necessarily. There's not quite relief yet.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. We're not relieved yet, but there's some, I guess, what's the word? Satisfaction in Haman being found out.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So that was very. I enjoyed reading that part this week. But it's interesting. There was a version I read. I think I read it today. I might be misinterpreting it, but what I understood from it is that she was saying that Esther was saying that if they had been sold to slaves, not it wouldn't be with the loss that the king would get. So how I interpreted it, I'm now that I'm thinking about it, I may have misinterpreted it, but how I saw it as you getting money for what is going down. If we had just been sold to slavery, our freedom is not necessarily with your money. Okay. And I guess she's seeing it as them being his citizens, in the sense that they're already under his rule. And I don't know that I get the feeling that the Jews may not have been first class citizens.
Okay.
You're not sure because here is Esther in the palace, and a lot of them.
They don't know that she's a Jew.
Well, yeah. But I get that impression that they're not necessarily first class citizens. So them being sold into slavery is neither here nor there.
Okay.
But the fact that she's saying, well, I guess it's not worth his time. In the other versions, he's saying it's not worth his time or effort. In this version, I'm interpreting it as it's not worth his money.
Financial loss.
Right. Okay. And that was just so interesting to me. And the fact that, well, it's been a while since they were slaves.
Okay.
And so I don't know if she's saying that because she believes it, or she could afford to believe that because it's been a while and she has no recollection,
No
she has no
concept
concept of what slavery would have been like. So that was an interesting.
And it puts it into context because what she asked for specifically is not for them to be not sold. She asked spare our lives.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes it interesting. Yeah. For me, I didn't do a good job of representing it in my summary. But one of the things that stood out to me is that Esther repeats the king's words back to him. So he asks, "What is your petition? What is your request?" And she says, "My petition is spare my life. My request is save the lives of my people."
Okay.
And I thought that was a very specific a very specific way to respond to the statement. Yeah.
Okay.
To use his exact words.
And I'm thinking her response, and the respect and reverence she uses, to, if she starts by, if the king is happy with me, and it low-key reminds me of the Hebrew boys in their response to the king, who's like, "Why are you not bowing down?" And they go, "Oh king," and there's just
forever or something like that.
Right. Yeah, and it's just this level of respect. Like, from our perspective, reading about 60s, I don't know how much respect I have for him, right? Right? He loves to drink. He doesn't make the best decisions. You get the impression that sometimes he's prone to anger, and so I don't know. He does not know that what his second in command guy is up to. He's a little clueless, and so I don't know. Esther knowing all of this, I don't know that it was necessarily easy to be that respectful,
Okay.
and speak to him in that way.
Yeah. You just made the point about him not knowing what his second hand man was up to, and that's one of the points I have, that he doesn't make the connection. He has given Haman the permission to get rid of this set of people, but here is his queen coming asking to save her life and the lives of her people, and he doesn't make the connection. And he cannot imagine someone plotting to kill his wife and her family.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. That he's I guess his immediate response is rage.
Okay.
And so there are no synapses firing. There's no connectivity going on upstairs. But he does not make that connection. I thought that was very interesting that he asks, who and where is this person that would even consider doing this? Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. My final point on this was that Haman has every right to be afraid. I'm sure plotting against the queen was a very serious offense. Like I feel like it would be up there with plotting against the king. So yeah, that was my last.
I have a point, but I think that goes to we've been talking a lot coming up to this about how Haman is like, I have a problem, I'm going to solve it through violence, and I'm going to do it right away, right?
He woke up and chose violence.
Right. And he just acts right away. And we're seeing now that he doesn't do his research. He does not know that he has waged a war against the queen herself. And so I think there is, not that we planning to wage any wars, right? But I think
we might.
There's something to learn there, Esther, and I think we got a comment like that on a previous video. This comparison between Esther and Haman. Esther she takes the time to, she gets a copy of the decree. She gets a look at it. She takes the time to essentially prepare for battle. She prays, she fasts, and then she moves. And we have Haman not even doing his basic research. He does not know who in the palace are Jews.
Yeah.
He does not know who he's fighting against. And this is what he wants to do. He's upset with one man. Let's take out his entire what are they? His entire race. And he doesn't know who he's up against.
And that, like, it's ironic, right? Because when you look at the family relation between Mordecai and Esther,
Yeah.
that it's like,
yeah, like he didn't even have to take out the race. If he had just attempted to assassinate Mordecai's immediate family, he's still going to be in problems. Yeah. So you see him not planning ahead, not doing any research, and it coming and backfiring in his face. Another point I have, well, I feel like I made that point last time, but I don't know if I did. You have Esther showing hospitality to her. Did we make that point? To her enemy.
I don't know. I don't know that we did.
I'm not sure.
It feels familiar, but I don't think either of us said that. But that's an interesting point. Because she could have easily poisoned him. Like, just think about it.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Put a little some in the wine.
But that would affect sex.
No, just put it in his glass.
In his glass, yeah. Right. But I don't know.
This is why I'm not the queen of Windsor, right?
Yeah. I don't know that would help her situation. Long term, right? It might have been an immediate solution, but yeah. So Esther keeps going up in my books. Yeah.
Wise woman. Okay, so let's look at the last, I think, 4 verses. We're looking at 7 to 10, and so as we would expect, the king is pissed. He is raging mad, and he gets up and he walks away, and it tells us that he goes to walk in the garden, right? And based on every version I read, it looks like Haman seemed to understand that the king had already come to a decision about him. Like, his fate was sealed. And so he decides that my one chance is to beg the queen for my life. Like, let me just beg her. And when the king comes back in, he finds Haman fallen onto the bed or the chair that Esther is lounging on. And his immediate response is, will he harass the queen in my house? Right? Even in my presence. And as, like, and I think every version I read, like, was specifically, like, as the king was saying this, like, as he was saying it, servants came and covered Haman's face, which I think was an indication of his fate.
Right.
Yeah? And then we have the servant called Habana, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, who comes in and says, there is a structure that Haman has built in his yard to kill Mordecai. The same Mordecai who saved the king. And then the king says, okay, so we're going to kill him there. We're going to use that structure to kill him. And so Haman was killed on the structure that he prepared for Mordecai. Then was some of the king's anger pacified. And that's how the chapter ends. Like, it took the killing of Haman to cause the king to chill.
Where do we start?
This was one of the things that stood out to me, right? Because throughout this entire study, we have been judging Xerxes about taking bad advice and making hasty decisions. But it looks like he has some growth, right?
I was saying,
because like, he got up and took a walk.
Yeah, I was so proud of him. I was so proud of him. Yeah. He's learning. Okay, let's not make a decision in anger.
Well, I think he still does. But
I think his anger dies down, and then he has reason for it.
I have that in my mind.
Right. Yeah. And I was just so proud of him. I was like, he gets up, he walks out, he doesn't see anything. It looks like he's trying to calm down. He goes and takes a walk in his garden among the greenery and the nice cool breeze, you know. And I feel like there's so much we can learn from that. And this is not like in the case of the assassination plot. That was word of mouth, hearsay. it could have been hearsay. This is somebody coming to tell you something, right? But well, technically, Esther is telling him, but it's not. It's in Haman's presence. Haman has the power to the ability to refute it then and there. He's there. So this is a case where he knows the person is guilty, but still he's going to wait before he acts. And I thought that was just incredible of him.
Hats off.
Yeah.
Growth.
He's growing.
That's
he's
what we call
learning,
that.
and I'm
Growth.
proud of him.
Yes. My second point was that even though it seems that the king is going to maybe cool down, Haman seems to understand that the king has already made a decision about his fate. And I think across the translations, it was saying that
He knew.
Yeah. He knew like that's it.
But what does that say about Xerxes? Because I've been just getting these confusing. You have him making a decision about Vashti right away. You have him waiting about the two guards at his door. You have him, what else? You have him going right ahead with wiping out the race. But
I think in this situation, Haman's understanding may have come because
he was guilty.
Not just he was guilty, but it was the queen's life on the line. And I think he, being the second-hand man, was in a good position to be aware of how Xerxes felt about his queen. Because we have her coming in without invitation and her life being spared. And he's in Haman's presence. We have Xerxes offering her multiple times up to half of his kingdom.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Okay.
So
yeah,
this is his number one gal.
Yeah.
Right? And you have you're not just threatening to kill her, you're threatening to kill her and her whole family. Like,
yeah,
there's no coming back from that. Like, even if you were just joking, right, and you were actually planning to do it, but he knows you were planning to do it because he gave you his ring to sign the document and seal the document, and you promised to give him so much money to put in his account. But I think after she said it's Haman, that's when the things clicked, like the cogs, clicked, and he was able to put two and two together. And so I think Haman also put two and two together. And I was like, that's it for me. Yeah. So that was interesting. I have a couple of points, but
yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. My next one is that how do you pronounce his name? I don't think we're there yet, though.
No. Okay.
So you go.
Okay. Right to the study, right? We've seen Haman not showing any mercy or grace to Mordecai, right? Like, no. The people come and ask, say he's a Jew, will you allow him to not? But he's like, no. More so, not no. I'm gonna kill him for this. He leaves the first banquet, sees him, and he's like, you gotta die. And here he is, on his knees, begging Mordecai's adopted daughter for his life. Like, And before you get to your point, I think, I get the impression that it was the king coming back and finding Haman on the bed with the queen that really, really sealed his fate.
Yeah, I agree. Because even okay, I feel like somebody begging for their life is not going to look calm and peaceful, and it could look a lot like anger. Well, it depends, but maybe a crazed look. And so this is the man trying to kill her, and he's fallen on top of her essentially. I guess you can assume he's trying to hurt her. Hurt her now.
I think had he been on the floor or standing a little bit away, he might have. He might maybe. You know, I feel like he was still in big trouble. But I think the fact that the king came in and he was like directly too close to the queen, too close. Like he was like, nah.
But you have to appreciate that. Well, yeah, that those two are go together. You were saying that Haman understood his fate because he knew how Xerxes felt about Esther, But that's also the reason he would have asked for her help, because if
anybody could
had,
save her, it would be her.
Yeah, anybody could. Yeah, he would have the most influence in saving his life.
That's a good point. Okay, so you go ahead.
Yeah, I just have that Harbona was a snitch.
But is he wrong though?
No,
Like, is he wrong?
I'm right there with him, because like
I would have been in the background going,
yeah, not just he has a structure to kill Mordecai, but this is the Mordecai who you just honored yesterday, was it yesterday, and who saved your life.
Not even yesterday, this morning.
It was that morning,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Okay, and he saved your life. Yeah, I would be there with him, because I guess everybody is satisfied to see Haman get his justices.
I don't know. Like we know we know about like the interactions he has with Mordecai, but we don't know about his interactions with anybody else.
Okay.
So we really don't know what the setup. Well, granted, based on what we've seen about him as an individual, I don't see that many people liking him, like genuinely liking him. So it could go either way. But like the point I have next is that we go right back to Xerxes making decisions hastily. After my brother man took a nice cool stroll to try and cool down, he hears about this structure and he's like, that's it. We're going to use that. We're going to kill him on that. And it's interesting because like there's that he's not going for a walk this time.
No.
There's no walking to be done right now. This is the structure he has. We're going to use it on him. That's it. And my final point is that the seeming justice is what calmed the king.
That's interesting. But spoiler, not Esther.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But I think it was his calming came with the fact that this is a person who intended to harm my wife and they are no longer around to harm her.
Right. Especially right there and then. He thought he was harming her right then.
Right. So I think he was not even thinking about her life and her people. It was just like he dared to interfere with my wife. He's gone. My wife is relatively safe now. Like relatively. We talk about that next chapter. You have anything else?
The last one, but I feel like that could lead us into the conversation about how we should about something.
Okay.
I was like, if we go back to last chapter, you have Haman preparing a reward that ends up reward for himself that Mordecai receives, and you have Haman preparing a punishment for Mordecai
that he receives. Wow! Like,
and the poetic justice in that is just
like, and it's interesting because that's what his wife and his friends told him. Like, if you have begun your downfall in front of Mordecai, who is the Jew, then you will end up falling flat on your face before Mordecai. So that's just. Yeah, but that's I like that. I like that. Okay, so I think I want to bring back up my my point about God from the last time, that God can use the people trying to tear us down to lift us up. That's not necessarily entirely accurate in the situation, but it just continued. It was the continued theme. But what I wrote about for this week when actually studying chapter 7 was that God has the ability to remove people and situations that would hurt or harm us, and he doesn't need our help to do it.
Wow.
Because like, where's Mordecai? We don't even know where Mordecai. Mordecai probably in his bed chilling. While all this is going on, he's at work chilling. While God is orchestrating or working out the end of his enemy,
right? And his deliverance from death as well. Yeah. Well, immediate death. Yeah. He still has the threat of death. Yeah. Right.
So that was my he can do it. He can keep me safe from the people and the situations. I wanted to be specific about that because sometimes it's not just people. Sometimes there's situations. Sometimes there's situations we put that could harm us or hurt us. But God is able to get rid of those And he could do it all by himself. Do you have anything?
I was actually focused on Esther's perspective when I was looking at that. I was saying that I tried to think about other I guess times of deliverance in the Bible. So I was thinking about the Israelites leaving Egypt, and that there was like 10 plagues, and then finally they get set free.
And even then, it's not even free.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So like it was miraculous, and this big thing for all the Israelites, all the Egyptians to see. And then you have lots of cases in the New Testament where the apostles are set free. You have an earthquake that frees them. And I was saying that.
Or angels opening
gates and all these supernatural things. But deliverance doesn't always have to come that way. Sometimes God could use a young woman, just like
yeah. And I was just say a dinner.
Yes, a meal, right? Yeah, a young lady serving a meal. Yeah, and deliver all these people. And I thought that was like pretty cool.
And the what you said, a young woman just like me, that struck a chord. Like he could choose to use a young woman just like this. That's nice. That's nice to think about. Okay, so in terms of life change and transformation, I think I took a lot of my life points this year directly from the things I observed. Like it was just, and the first one for me is there's power in words, and just like Esther repeats the king's words, I want to practice repeating God's words and promises back to him.
Nice.
I think there's power in. Because I think it was interesting to me because he was like, "What is your petition? What is your request?" And she's like, "Okay, you want to know my petition? This is my request." And so I think when God asks me, "What is my petition? What is my request?" I can tell him, "This is my petition. This is my request."
Yeah. That's nice. Anything else?
I have a lot. I was just giving you a chance.
It's the same. My main one is the same. What others intend for evil, God can use for my good.
Okay, beautiful. Like that is like, to me, like no matter how many times we have that as a takeaway, I feel like it's still going to be impactful and meaningful, because sometimes people out here be hating on you. They don't want you to have bad times and bad vibes and bad feelings. And God is like, no, I got you. We're gonna make this good. My second thing is that Esther saw slavery as not something that was reason enough to disturb the king. And I think sometimes we have a similar approach to God, and we try and say, this is too small for God. Okay. This is not serious enough to disturb God with. And I think that is something that I actively need to work on changing, because I should be bringing everything to him.
Anything that matters to you matters to him.
Yeah. And even some of the things that don't matter to me, right? Some of the things that don't matter to me, matter to me, I should still be bringing it. Okay, so the next point I have is when I'm feeling big. When I'm experiencing big feelings, like anger or sadness, a walk might be a good idea.
That's true.
Yeah. And then I say I want to practice
extending. We need to get a garden.
Yeah. A work in progress. Yes. I want to practice extending mercy and grace to those around me. Because I think that's something we see Haman outright not doing. I don't want to be Haman. No. I don't want to be the Haman's character in anybody's story. And my last point, which I think somewhat comes into what your last point might be, is that while sometimes it's important to think things through, I want to be more decisive. So sometimes it's not, yes, you want to consider the options, but then you don't want that consideration to prevent you from actually making a decision, and like you said last time, taking action. Okay. So sometimes, yes, you consider it, but you still had to move. Yeah. And that came from my last thing with Xerxes, where he was like, off with me.
I was actually thinking about it in terms of Esther and Mordecai, because they have this looming threat of death over their heads. And after Mordecai handed over to Esther, he left it alone. Like we don't know that he's doing anything in order to save his people. And I think that is ultimately where I want to get. So I hand it over to God and let him move on with my life. Yeah. Let him deal with it. Let him work it out. But in cases like Esther, where I have control and I have influence, there is something I can do. I think he requires me to do something, to speak up, to move, to take action. And so I think that's what I want to take away from this entire
it's about finding the balance.
Right.
And I think it remind maybe we should have a side conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we running
over time.
Yeah. So I think that's it for chapter 7.
Yep.
We read the whole chapter 8 next time?
Sweet.
Okay. So next time we read chapter 8, and feel free to leave your comments on what stood out to you in this chapter, and what were your answers to the 2 questions. What did we learn about God? What can you learn about how you should live your life?
So this has been What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm MJ.
And I'm TJ. And until next time,
we're out.